Hi everyone, today I would like to talk about something interesting, the topic that caught my attention. As you know, I like talking about mental health. I consider myself a mental health advocate and I analyze the psychology behind certain kinks. I like to talk about certain behaviors, and to see what caused it. But a little disclaimer, I'm not a therapist. I don't have a license, I'm just an amateur, and this is the field of my interest. I like clinical psychology, I like psychotherapy, I like psychiatry, but you have to understand that this is just my opinion and I'm not a therapist, So, I would like to talk about such thing as being neurospicy. If you don't know this term, it means, well, pretty much neurodivergent. The term neurodivergent initially meant someone with autism, or with the spectrum, but I'm gonna call everything autism in this video. But then later, other people decided to join this definition. So nowadays, someone with ADHD, someone with sometimes even narcissistic personality disorder, sometimes with borderline personality disorder. I'm not even talking about personality disorders class A. These are schizoid and schizotypal, and there is one more, I forgot. Paranoid? Which is fine, because obviously it's not a bad thing that finally we can recognize that not everyone has the same mental design. Let's call it mental design. The term neurospicy is mostly used by queer, leftists, and sex workers. Well, I see it just among women simply because I don't observe male sex workers as much. So I'm gonna speak about women. If you open TikTok, and check like some dom accounts, again, that's just what I see. I'm pretty sure that there are like different types of sex work where they use this term. I'm gonna be speaking about this in relation to kink and, well, femdom online and findom. And I find it pretty interesting, and I'm not going to look at this just in one direction, Let's see things from different perspectives, just the way I like it. So I would say that on the one hand, it's really good that finally we can recognize that not everyone is the same. That even, I don't know, like 20 years ago, autism was not recognized at all. That also depends on the country. But even 10 years ago, I would say that it's becoming more and more recognized and somehow popular just nowadays. And you will see this image of a gifted autistic, usually it's a man. I just immediately think of the shows, The Good Doctor, also The Young Sheldon. And I enjoy watching and talking to autistic people. I'm a former teacher and I used to have different students, and some of them were autistic. Sometimes they would be just autistic, sometimes it would be autistic plus gifted. And as an educator, I can tell you that this is the biggest pleasure to work with these kids. Well, I have my own reasons, why I understand their mind better, but I'm gonna speak about this a bit later. And when I imagine this kind of child, well, being raised, as I said, like maybe 20 years ago, that sounds like a torture. Like if there are teachers who don't understand the peculiarities of this little kid, if they expect him or her to fit in completely, or like if the parents behave in the similar way, that's pretty hard. So I'm really glad that finally the world recognizes the unique traits of these individuals. But if it was just great, I wouldn't be talking about it, obviously. With the rise of awareness, I would say that there is a trend for mental health diversity, for mental diversity, for being neurodivergent. We currently live in the world where everything normal becomes boring, such as the word cis. If you ask some Western teenagers, they will be using this term almost as derogatory. Everyone has so much time on their hands simply because they spend way too much time online talking about these things, seeing this kind of content where you have to question yourself, where you have to question your existence non-stop. And again, you might think that this is a good thing, and I would say that's some part of it, some little percentage of it, of being self-aware, of being like always wondering, like, who am I, what am I? That's not bad, but if your life consists of these things, it's gonna drive you nuts, and eventually. Unfortunately, the basis of this is, again, political agenda. I know that I always talk about it, but such ideologies as Marxism, or let's say neo-Marxism, communism, queerness, these things are deeply intertwined. And the purpose of these ideologies is to undermine what's normal, to make you question yourself nonstop, and to see everything, like to see the order as something that's supposed to be destroyed. It has become a trend to be something different. And I have first-hand experience in this. A few years ago, when I felt extremely lonely, when I constantly felt like I couldn't fit in, plus having some, as I say, mental peculiarities, I decided that, well, and obviously I was already into psychotherapy, and I was reading a lot, and I was watching a lot, and I was consuming a lot of content. And I'm not talking about, some random TikTok videos. And when it happened, I would say that it wasn't as popular. I still try to listen to like actual therapists. And then eventually I visited a psychiatrist. And since I already had some mental health issues, plus traumatic events that, well, triggered my whole system, the psychiatrist, well, said that I did have schizotypal personality traits. Basically, he said that I just had STPD, plus borderline personality disorder traits. And after that, I decided like that in order to help myself, I wanted to help others. That's actually what I often do. I just love sharing what I know with others, and through, well, seeing the impact on someone's life, seeing the improvements in someone's life, I feel better about myself. And somehow I get distracted from my own issues, but at the same time, I can understand them more. Anyway, I started creating content as a mental health advocate about schizotypal personality disorder. Well, about other stuff as well, but that was the main topic. And I was quite surprised. I didn't expect that it would be a popular thing, but apparently there were a lot of weird and lonely people on the other side of the world who, well, got quite attracted to the content that I was creating, and I didn't expect so much attention. Then at some point it became uncomfortable. So my desire to fit in brought me to, well, initially I was helping these people. I see you, I recognize you, I know how you feel. And also I was trying to help myself. I wanted to find a group of people who are very similar to me, who have the same weird thoughts, who have the same strange life experience, like with the same type of magical thinking. And the STPD people are very creative most of the time. And I was like, I found my crowd. And the more I was talking, and not only talking, I was just reading comments, and I was reading forums. And to some of that I could relate, but then I noticed one particular tendency. Because as soon as you label yourself, for example, there would be like 10 traits of someone with any kind of disorder. And you just check that you have 5. But since you really want to fit in, you think, maybe the 6th one also kind of relates to me. Well, I don't have the 7th one, but then your mind starts working in the way when you It sounds like a contradiction, but you start looking for the ways to implement these qualities to fully fit in. Because you want to be defined. You want to belong to some certain group, and you want to receive some sort of, well, label, definition, and instruction how to approach you and how to communicate with you. I can imagine that, well, lots of people who call themselves neurospicy and who are like so proud of it. And again, I'm not trying to belittle your experience. I imagine that if you have mental health issues, that like finally you found a space where you can be yourself, you can express yourself, and you can actually, well, prioritize the qualities that make you different and also sometimes monetize them. Yeah, I can see that, and I can also respect that. Since I've been through this, I've been on this path of really like trying to get myself into some sort of template. Because at first, you don't want to fit in when it comes to neurotypical people, but then you try to fit in with neurospicy, and you always have to hold some certain standard in order to be able to call yourself that. I remember a conversation with one girl who was also schizotypal, which kind of brought me to the thoughts that, well, maybe it's not what I need. Because she asked me a question: have you noticed that you as a schizotypal female don't want to conform to the norms of femininity, and you act in a more masculine way? And I'm like, yeah, when I was in high school, I mostly had boyfriends, and I also try to show that I'm not like other girls. I'm not into makeup. I'm not into girly stuff because it's all stupid. I don't compete for who's more beautiful because I'm naturally beautiful. But this is just like a pick-me behavior. This is internalized misogyny. This is how we are raised. It has nothing to do with being schizotypal. Then I started looking at this with more criticism. I was reading forums, reading about people's experiences, and just saw how different it was. And I'm not saying that you're supposed to be the same, you're supposed to have the same traits, exactly the same traits, and the same experiences. No. Obviously, you also have to have something in common. That's why that's called a disorder. Anyway, it brought me to the moments when I was creating content for those who want to interact with people with schizotypal personality disorder, and also then with borderline personality disorder. How to hear them better, how to understand them better. But then I noticed, and now I can recognize it, and I feel quite ashamed of this. Well, maybe not as much right now, because, well, it was necessary for me to go through that journey. And in those videos, I definitely crossed the line. Basically, finding excuses for this neurodivergent people's behavior. Then my narcissism kicked in, and I decided that, well, if there are so many people with various personality disorders, why is it us who are supposed to fit in? Why don't they try and play by our rules? I would go on a date, I would act in a weird way, and then I would say, well, this is my disorder. You can read about it, educate yourself. Why do you think I'm judging these people so harshly who say, educate yourself? Because I've been through that, okay? So yeah, like I would tell a guy to educate himself and act as if like I'm more superior because I possess more knowledge and he's just neurotypical. Fortunately, this period didn't last long. I came to my senses. But now I can recognize this behavior. Again, I don't think that there should be like one-sided view on this trend, and that's a trend, because it's more than just recognition and awareness. This is the glorification of mental health disorders. You can see it in every layer. BDSM people decided to destigmatize themselves, and all of a sudden, those who just spend time online searching for a kink experience, they attach themselves to the BDSM group and are like, oh, we don't have any mental health issues. And actually, if I want to be dressed as a little girl and wear a diaper outside of the private circumstances, and that's a part of my identity, that's normal. Working with your mental health, yeah, knowing your triggers and knowing what soothes you, knowing, well, the way you function and being able to explain it to other people is very important. However, I find this glorification of mental health issues quite dangerous. You can see it, for example, in trans agenda. It all starts with mental health issues. And if before it was a certain mental health disorder, yeah, gender dysphoria, so you are supposed to have, well, a mental health condition. Otherwise, why are you suffering? What does it mean to feel like the opposite gender? Oh, not the opposite gender, is a spectrum. So if before it meant having gender dysphoria and then transitioning in order to be trans, nowadays you are not supposed not only to transition, but also you are not supposed to have gender dysphoria. And that's pretty interesting. So on the one hand, they try to destigmatize everything, but at the same time, they want to take every little thing as a part of their identity. And at the same time, others are supposed to walk on eggshells in order not to offend you, in order not to harm you, in order not to make you feel unsafe. I can see how this trend of recognizing neurodivergence can bring more mental health issues in the future, or already. Okay, that's it about this topic for today. Let me know what you think about neurospiciness. Maybe you are neurospicy and what it means for you. Also, I've just created a free Telegram channel where I'm going to share pretty much whatever I want. So this is not just fetish related, even if I think that I will still analyze some fetishes. I will talk about my life, maybe religion, politics, all this spicy stuff, psychology. Follow me on Instagram, on Twitter, and just wherever I go. Stay sane. Goodbye.